Are we live? Are we live? It looks like we are live. Well, we are live, recording live from Arlington, Vermont. My name is Mr. Katie, and this is Happy Valley Hobbies. And I'm sharing hobbies that make me happy. And tonight, I'm feeling a little under the weather and all that. I've been sniffling for the past couple of days. So I'm not up to 100% ready to go, but from what I understand, the show must go on. So the show is going on. And basically tonight is talking about some of the locomotives that I've gotten recently and how I'm planning on modifying them. And we'll go from there. Hello, James. Nice seeing you from the chat I just left you from over on Jim Tedesco's channel. So thank you for wandering over here. And also, hair's hair. So we'll switch cameras so we can see what I'm after. All right, what you're seeing right there is basically where I left off at the last live stream. But sorry for the shaky camera. It's on a very shaky setup. But locomotives that I have that I'm using. The reason why I sort of stopped on this is because of not having ties, and so that's why that's been sort of put on hold temporarily. But the locomotives that I have, from my understanding, this mold, it's after the Sierra Nevada #3. And apparently it's called the oh, I'm blinking out on exactly what it is. Hello there, Anthony. Yeah, unfortunately I am a little under the weather and all that, so my brain is not fully functional at this point. It has Dixie in it, but I forgot exactly which. It's not Mason Dixie, but it's something very similar. And the interesting thing is that what I've actually have 4 of them, and 2 of them are being used for parts for the other 2, mainly because, well, they don't make this. This is not made. This particular model is not made anymore. And what I've done, actually, you might not be able to see this, but on these, the way they're set up is that there's like 1 tire with a rubber band on it. And if you notice, this one has 2, because I took the front wheel, which only has the rubber band tires on the back, but the front does not. And what I wound up doing was putting them on these, so these 2 right here don't have any rubber tires on them. And that's what the plan is to have these as running locomotives, and these are the parts. And interestingly, what I didn't realize is that I actually had 2 sets that had black wheels and a set that had red wheels. So I was able to not have any weird color setups for that. Hello, John, and how are you this Mason wasn't Mason Dixon. I mean, Dixie is in on the name of the mold, but not necessarily Mason. But this is a model of what I didn't know at the time, but of the Sierra number 3, which is, I believe, in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's most photographed locomotive, or at least in the movies. The locomotive was in Petticoat Junction. Black when it was black and white. It was like sort of the star of the show. The last one that I know of, it was in Back to the Future 3. That's understand, James, if you can't stay long. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to survive without sniffling or sneezing and all that fun stuff. So, oh, I just happened to realize that I don't have all the locomotives in the site here. But another thing is that the drive wheel on these, basically because I think they're sort of designed for toys, toy layouts, is that the drive, yeah, I can't even talk tonight. These drivers are blind on the gearing. Eventually, I want to see about figuring out a way how to get it so that the drivers are not blind. But that might be a challenge for later on. Another thing I want to do is take the original motors and actually put a smaller motor in it, because the motor on these pretty much take up the entire cab. It's not really prototypical having the back of the steam boiler past the cab, that I'm aware of. I mean, there might be something out there that might be an exception to the rule, but one of the interesting things I'm finding out, since I'm modeling the 1870s, I'm learning on what is oh, excuse me, what is considered the time period and what is considered not. The original prototype, I believe, was 1890s or something along those lines. I know Back to the Future 3, it's set up in the 1885. And from my understanding, that the locomotive was built about 10 years after the movie was supposed to be. So that's sort of like an interesting setup on that. And also, I want to see about maybe eventually having the pickups, not, I want to say not the NMRA standard where you got pickups here and you got pickups here. I want to do more wheels actually connecting electrical contacts. Another thing is, if you notice that these two have straight pipes and these have like a very thin diamond stack. Originally, I was planning on seeing about going with this style, but I was just recently I was able to get the John Wright Jr.'s book on early locomotives, and it actually it actually shows the Schrader stack as a more modern one. If you remember watching the or seeing the picture of the Golden Spike ceremony at Promontory Point, the I believe it was the Central Pacific. No, wait a second. Central Pacific, that was the Jupiter. The Jupiter was an older engine, and I think the 119 was a newer one, and that's the one that has the straight pipe on it. But straight boilers seem to be, yeah, I think the straight boilers are more the earlier style. But if you look at this real close, I can't really tell. But there is an act right where the steam the dynamo is that is a let's see if I can get a I'm not quite sure if you can actually see where it has a uh, it actually has a taper. The firebox is actually larger than the boiler. It's not boiler tubes. Boiler barrel. Another thing I have to do is when I actually start doing surgery on these, I'll probably practice on these, but the elongated box has to come off. The longer ones, from what I understand, that was the characteristics of coal fire, coal burning locomotives, because they had needed a much longer travel, so they can get rid of this smoke and all that. Whereas they were able to use had something else with the smoke for the wood burning ones. But I don't know the exact details yet. I haven't been able to figure out those little details. Let's see. All right. Apparently, I've been holding my hand little bit there, so still that it looked like it wound up the frame wound up going, or looked frozen. But yeah, it's one of the interesting things I found out. There's like a decade period between when they're required to have air pumps. This is the air pump on this particular model. It's very small air tanks on it. That it was a while. It was about 10 years between they were required to have the air pumps on, till they came out with a what's called the gantry. I want to say gantry coupler, which is what we call now the knuckle coupler. And so there is a period of they're still using the Lincoln pin, but they do have the air brakes on, which I thought was sort of kind of interesting to find out. Yes, basically, the plan is to probably see on the Denver and Rio Grande one. You can see where this goes up here, and you see two sets of rivets. My plan is to actually cut between the rivets. We have to make a new. Oh, excuse me. New a new boiler. It's not stay, but this particular piece right here. Also, I'm also thinking of redoing or filing off the things for the handrails and make them more solid. I believe I would have to take off the dynamo because in the 1870s they didn't have. I do not believe they had electric lighting. They still were having the. I'm blank. I know they're not oil lamps. I forgot exactly what the lamps were, but they were. I do believe they were not electric at the time. Well, that was more turn of the century when they were able to get electric. Yeah, I'm keeping the air pumps for the brakes. The interesting thing is it was required by law, but of course, turning around and actually implementing all air brakes and all that took a while. And then some cars, I think, if by the Great Depression, they still had cars with this style of truck and no air brakes and etc., but they weren't allowed at interchange service. Stack shape does have spark arresters. That is correct. I'm leaning towards the Russian iron cladding. I'm not quite sure when the cladding no longer became available. I get the impression, I could be completely wrong on this, but the Russian iron was not able to still be shiny when they started to convert over to coal. I guess coal wound up hitting the Russian iron. That's why they went to all black engines, because burn marks didn't show up on black paint. But I can be completely wrong on that one. But that's from my understanding. Another reason why I'm going with the Russian iron is because the main reason I was picking the time periods because locomotives were not black. They had all different colors and etc. And I mean the bright vermilion wheels and different colors along those lines. Some paint schemes, from what I understand, are completely inaccurate. Like the Santa Fe one here, I don't believe they had. I don't think they had. They might have had red calves and stuff like that, but I don't think they actually had green boilers. I could be wrong on that because, well, there's not that many color photographs of that particular time period. You have to go with the lithographs, which at the time their lithographs also has a tendency to. They figured out that the lithographs had a tendency to exaggerate the colors because they're trying to show off their printing process. But another interesting detail with this particular model, from my understanding, is that this is actually not HO scale. It's actually OO scale, which, if you're not looking at it very closely and all that, you sort of kind of would realize that it's not until you actually get another locomotive next to it that you sort of get oh, wait a minute, that looks way too large. I mean, the model itself is a larger engine than your typical American style, but when you put them together, Even the tender, which from what I understand is supposed to be close to the same size, is obviously much larger. Um, and another interesting thing is that this one measures the scale 10 foot width-wise, but this one, this model, is at 11. So you can just see everything's just a little bit larger. And what I'm aiming for is doing HOW6, and wide gauge engines were normally larger than the standard gauge, just like narrow gauge is smaller than standard gauge. There's other details I need to change also. One is the cab. The model shows a metal cab. Metal cabs, I read recently, were it was sort of a rarity until the turn of the century. They just, it was more of a, oh, it's wood, it's cheap, we can easily change it and all that. But eventually, by the 1900s, they just a lot of them decided to go back to or go over to a steel cab instead of a wooden one. Another interesting thing is that if you look at the drivetrain, where the pistons are, right here, there's actually a very large spacer. This is, because oh, excuse me. Because since this model's OO instead of HO, everything's larger, and including the spacing of where the cylinders are. So in order to make it a narrow gauge engine that would run on HO scale track, there's very large spacers that are here. And I think what I might be able to do is make spacers for the wheel size, and then eliminate this spacer. Might have to do some other things with the crosshead, but I might be able to just stretch it, basically stretch it out a bit, and not worry about trying to figure out how to get the newer cylinders or doing something to the cylinders to make them wider, which I would have to do if I was doing a standard gauge locomotive. I was actually, in researching broad gauge engines, I was actually surprised to find out that a lot of times they would all use the same boiler. It's just that they would just make the gauge, the frame underneath different. But that's one of the interesting things of doing this. I'm finding out that with doing the broad gauge, may or may not be easier than I think. One of the hardest thing is trying to, I thought was trying to find trucks, and I've come across the label, and let's see if I can find the label card. Got this almost completed label combine, and if you look on how the trucks are made, is that you got the two side frames and a bolster. The bolster itself is, not quite sure if we can show it. but it's almost like a straight piece of bar with holes drilled into it. So I should be able to find a way to get a bolster that would be correct length, and then just add the side frames. And the side frames are they're the ones that are cast in metal, whereas the bolster can be machined. And then, of course, trying to find axles that would be able to press fit the HO scale. To press fit the HO scale wheels on there. HOW6 is actually a millimeter off of S gauge. So my thoughts on track planning would be more towards an S scale, an S gauge plan, with turning around and making buildings from it. 19th century Rogers locomotive. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the book that I have through the library right now is from John H. Weiss Jr. And they actually have an Erie mogul. Oh, excuse me. Showing the internals on that, and I would have to say that it's very interesting because there's a lot of things that, because these are model trains, you don't model them, but it's interesting to find out how they used to build some equipment. And I was surprised to find out that the grating on this mogul was actually made out of they had water tubes in there, so they had water on the going through the grating, which I found extremely interesting. I'm assuming they stopped doing that because trying to maintain high pressure. They were connected directly to the steam boiler, so they were at steam pressure, and probably do not want to be hitting, throwing wood and hitting a very high pressured steam pipe, or actually water pipe, because it's obviously way below the firebox. So if something like that, if you threw something on it and something broke, well, all of a sudden that you get pressurized hot water coming out, not which instantly turns into steam, which cools it down a much, but I would assume would the crew would still be burnt very badly. Oh, excuse me. I might be cutting this short because I'm not feeling very well. All right, let's see. What time is it? I'm only about halfway through. Well, I'll see about plugging on. Another interesting thing is that I am obviously going to have to hand lay my own track, and I have found out that I thought it would be very hard to find appropriate bridges, or things that go above and beyond this flat track. And this is a Hunter Line Queen Post Bridge, and this is it comes in standard gauge and what they call narrow gauge. But the interesting thing is that the narrow gauge, here's the drawing for it. The narrow gauge has 14-foot clearance. The standard gauge that I've had was 16-foot clearance. And one interesting thing is actually says in the instructions is that the narrow gauge is actually prototypical standard gauge. The reason why it's narrow gauge and the 16 is considered standard gauge is because the 16-inch clearance or 16-foot clearance is for it's recommended by the NMRA because normally model trains are going through much sharper turns and all that, so there's more. There's more clearance that needs to be had. So interestingly, I haven't checked it out exactly, but the NMRA clearance actually is very close to having the broad gauge, which is sort of kind of interesting. Or I think I might have to start calling it wide gauge because the destination is a W, not a B. But as you can see here, step out of the way. I am doing this little scene, sort of practicing on how to do scenery. But as you can tell, put the one of the locomotives on here, is that it does fit. And for those who saw earlier, I had N-scale track on the layout or on this diorama, and that is because this is code 55, and that's code 55 is an HO scale. What would be sort of the track, the size of the track that they had at that time. Code 100, I mean, is today is considered, even for modern main lines, to be sort of a little oversized. Another thing I need to probably have to do is, since I'm using this much smaller rail, is to find a way to make the flanges just a little bit smaller, not by much. The drivers I don't have to do as much, but the normal tender trucks and the front pilot trucks are almost like pizza cutters, and going that direction. And of course I do it again where, oh, okay, now I see what's going wrong. It seems that the picture that goes to YouTube is smaller than the picture that's on Zoom. Okay, that's good to know. It's one of those things I'm still learning the small ins and outs of how to do this. But for those who are still watching, thank you for staying on with me with my sniffling and rambling. But I'm actually starting to think that it might be a good time to actually maybe stop the stream a little earlier than normal, because probably don't want to hear me constantly sniffling. Yeah, coal was sort of slowly becoming on its own, especially with the railroads that had their own coal mines. They were the first ones to sort of convert over to coal first. Yeah, learning is debatable because I'm not quite sure how much my uh, I'm still learning about the era and all that, so my information may or may not be fully correct. Um, but it's uh, it's definitely you can easily get into the weeds of research and research and research and research. But I have learned that eventually you have to stop researching and actually start doing something, and then you can actually learn from actually doing stuff and making mistakes. That's one of the reasons why I went with doing a diorama first. Is the layout that I have, which is here. Um, that is right now standard gauge, and that's so I can have something around to operate equipment and figuring out how operations are going to work before I start with the broader gauge. Uh, Not many people don't realize that in the United States there was no standard gauge. I actually come to think of it, I don't even think it's an official 4 foot 8.5 inches. I don't think is a possibly might not be the official gauge of the United States. It's just that the Transcontinental Railroad was saying, okay, this is where uh, the Transcontinental Railroad is going to be 4 foot 8.5 inches, and then everybody just followed afterwards. It took several decades to get that far, but um, originally, from my understanding, is that when there were first plans for the first transcontinental railroad, it was actually going to be a much southern route, and it was going to be 5 foot gauge. So there would have been a possibility of 5 foot being the quote standard instead of the 4 foot 8.5. That's what Russia went with. Uh, until I'm not quite sure when it was, but apparently when Russia decided to go metric, they moved the gauge 2 millimeters just so it would be an even number. Oh, go via or go home. And how are you today? Uh, as I was explaining earlier, I've been sniffling a lot, so that's why I I think I'm also probably not sounding at my normal cheerful self. But now, if I remember correctly, is Govia? Are you doing uh, Third Rail Thursday after this? Uh, that is true too. A lot of trees uh, were gone in the east. Actually, the interesting thing is that I remember after hearing about all the lumber companies in the area that I live in, uh, I actually looked at the trees and realized that a lot of them are very, very small, diameter wise. Uh, every now and then I come across one that's, it's obviously an old growth tree. Oh, it's M&M tonight. All right, understood. I'm not feeling very well, so I might stop a lot earlier and all that, so we won't be uh, step yeah stepping on their toes. Uh, yeah, it's like I'm having a hard time putting words together and sniffling. Uh, so that shows you how how healthy I am tonight. We're supposed to be getting weather-wise, we're supposed to be getting lots and lots of rain and possible flooding. But I'm on a hill, so there won't be any that. Oh, that's right. The American Civil War Zoom meetings on after this. Um, for those who are interested in around the Civil War era, I guess that they do they primarily do the Civil War era, but they also do the Reconstruction, which that's what I'm into, and also the Annabella, which is before the Civil War. And so it's I guess it's mostly the I want to lean towards 18th century railroading, which it doesn't seem that there's not that many people who do that era. It's like it seems that it's either the transition era, first or second generation diesels. Very few people do the absolute more modern stuff because there's not that many models that are out there, but most of the models that I've seen are sort of first, second, and I think possibly even third generation diesel eras. And the steam era is, it's sort of the 19, right after World War II, where you had the big, huge, massive locomotives. Usually the short lines I've seen are sort of like logging locomotives with the geared shays and etc. But that's just it. There is a lot of variety that a lot of people can play around with, and get everything from the Plywood Central to Northlands to I can't think. Right now I can't think of there's someone that does has operations, and they don't have that much. They don't really have much scenery, but they have their operations set up very well on this. Then you got people who are like I can't think of his name. He does the What's Neat show, which from what I understand, his layout, it looks gorgeous and all that, but it's just purely a purely rail fanning layout like Northlands. But whereas Northlands, basically has big, it's a big, huge place and all that. This guy, he puts a lot of effort into the scenery, like putting in small little rocks. It looks like he even turns around and he figures out what's the perfect place to put this particular rock. And Ken Peterson. All right. Yes. I was actually, yeah. I was thinking of another Ken, but at least I got the first one right. But how you doing, Crooked River and Eastern? As you can hear, that I'm sniffling and coughing and not feeling particularly well, but I was going over to what I'm doing with these particular engines, trying to make them a little bit more repairable and repairable. Like on this one, that way. But what I wound up doing was originally the way these are set up is that they have a back traction tire. And basically what I wound up doing was grabbing the front wheel set, which doesn't have the traction tire, and sort of like swapping between the two. So I got two locomotives that have uh, two locomotives that have the two traction tires, and then I have two that do not have traction tires. And I didn't realize this, but apparently I lucked out that one set had black wheels, and the other two had the red vermilion style wheels. So I got one good locomotive that doesn't have the traction tires with red wheels, one with black. But another thing is what I'm planning on doing, which is sort of possibly unorthodox, is going with horn hook couplers. The time period is set up more for link and pin, and my thought process is that link and pin was before knuckle couplers in the prototype. The horn hook couplers was before knuckle couplers in HO scale. So that's what my idea is, to do it that way. Right now, my skill with the making models is not that up with RPM standards, but I'll get there eventually, slowly but surely. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling. Yeah, yesterday my nose was running faster, doing. Yeah, my nose was running faster than the 4-minute mile, which is I'm feeling better, but obviously not 100%. And that's why I'm sort of kind of running out of things to say, and to keep people entertained. But I am slowly getting not only doing locomotives, but also like this bridge. I never done wood kits before, and through New Trex modeling, I've been doing more and more like wood kits and etc. Like I got people might recognize the Bar Mills water tower kit, which I think came out pretty decent. I mean, it's not quite perfect. I think I'm gonna change the weathering a little bit on the roof. The idea on this one is to have the water tower being the older portion and this being a new addition. Hence the reason why it looks. I didn't really stain the wood yet on that. One thing I wound up doing. This is one of the new builds on New Tracks. And I did this, and the thing is that when I got this, I didn't have the deck. So I actually wound up turning around and, making a deck out of cardboard from from a tee that I usually drink. And in the meantime, I went and I asked. I'm blanking on the guy who owns Motrax. Uh, I asked, it's like, I showed him pictures going like, hey, this looks cool, probably will look better with the appropriate decking. And he sent that out. And in the meantime, I got employed, so I haven't been able to revisit this and change it. But I will eventually. I mean, it's a very small. Well, I'm using it as a passenger flat slash freight station. Uh, it's for a very it's in a very small town and all that, so I don't really need a large station. And it looks very close to the station that was on the Schoharie and Middleburg. They had something. They had a station similar. I think it was a little bit larger, but very similar. And it was a small little short line that went from Schoharie to Middleburg, and it was only about 5 miles long. They only had one locomotive. They had a two-engine stall house, but they only had one locomotive. And originally that line was also 6 foot. And their first locomotive that they had, I was going to say it was called the Middleburg, but the thing is, all the engines that the railroad ever had were called Middleburg. But it was a 4-2-4T arrangement, very similar to the little engine that could. Well, this oh, excuse me. The interesting thing is with this particular kit is that the tank portion is actually a resin kit, and then eventually, I guess, and you can get that separate. And then there's a deluxe version which has this workstation, not workstation, work building added onto it. One of the interesting things that Bar Mills has, if you are planning on scratch building, they have what's called the one kit, which the way I look at it is basically parts to build a building. It's got doors, windows, and all the walls actually have pre-cut sections. So all you have to do is just cut out the section, and then you can add whatever you want. Let's see if I can get this. This is one that I half built it, and then when I realized that I don't really, the flat roof wouldn't have worked, but the walls come in like 2 stories, and see here, you can see places where you can ut out windows. And on the first floor, they also have a place where everything goes down, where you can actually just cut out different doorways and all that. They give you different options. I think these doors are the same, but they do have different doors they can put onto. It goes through, suggests where you put bracing and stuff like that. Nutrex Modeling did one of these as a building, and a lot of people were annoyed. It's like, well, there's no real instructions on it. It's like, well, it's more almost one step from scratch building, where you don't have any plans, but there are things that can set up where you can turn around and uh, cut things to where you want. These, as you can see, are all cut this way. The interesting thing is the reason why this is blank is because this was going to go up against the backdrop, so you wouldn't be seeing it. So it made more sense not to have it that way. This end would also would have been closer to another backdrop, but you'd still be able to see a little bit of it. So that's why I added wound up adding more detail on this side. But that's what the Vars Mill 1 kit is. Another one that which are they have small wooden kits if you want to try. Congoino Models also makes a bunch of small buildings, laser cut. One of the things I added on this was view blockers, so you wouldn't be able to see through the whole thing. One thing I did here was, in order to help the illusion of that you can't see through it and all that, I put these window shades over the windows. And the quote story is that somebody is sleeping during the daytime and all that, so that's why they have the windows closed. But this was a cute little kit, which was also a what they call the build along. But it's one of those things of, I would say Crooked River is to turn around and buy a small wood kit and try it. It's one of those things of go with something that that would possibly fit on your layout. I mean, if you're doing a city scene and all that, well, it's very hard to do a small model. But it's one of those things of try it. You might like it, you might not. And I seem to like the wooden kits. But that's as I said, that's just me. And it looks like it's time to. It is now 8:01. It is time to call it a night. So everyone who is listening, thank you for staying with me. Let me get things moved around here. So thank you for still staying here, and with my babbling on stuff and etc. But and through my sniffling and coughing and sneezing and all the other things. So thank you for coming. And the idea is that I'll theoretically be healthier next time, a little bit more organized. But I am off to the Zoom meeting that was talked about this before. Thank you, Anthony, for staying to the end. And basically, find your passion. Yeah, wait a second. The world needs more love. Find your passion. Add some silliness to it. And spread the love all over the place. So, good evening, everyone.